Okay, you're going to hear these words uttered more and more frequently this spring and summer. It's called food protectionism. That's right. It's really just a fancy name for when countries shore up their own domestic supply. We've seen a lot of it since the war in Ukraine started, and nearly 50 global export curbs have since been put in since the invasion, to be exact. So most notably, Indonesia's banned all palm oil exports until further notice. That's the most used cooking oil in many parts of the world. On its face, you may understand why some countries take this route. But what may seem like a good idea to take care of one's own, well, usually ends up hurting those who need it the most. This will affect supply chains and the movement of goods because export controls cause prices to climb higher. It is an inflationary on its face, which is exactly the wrong thing at the wrong time. Another noble idea beaten down by common sense. And my next guest has oodles of common sense. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Walser. Thanks for being on, Rebecca. So, food protectionism, it's almost weaponizing. What do you think?
It is, Scott. And I looked at the World Trade Organization. They came out with an article in April of this year that basically said this is not the time to turn inward, and that turning in would be a really big problem. Of course, the World Trade Organization has a vested interest to keep all countries trading. That's their job, right? But obviously, Scott, this is a problem. You know, when you have countries that have outsourced, completely outsourced a particular good because they think, hey, we can buy it cheaper and get it faster elsewhere, and then their suppliers said, oh, you know what? We changed our mind. We're not going to sell it to you. What is a country to do? And this is exactly what will happen in a lot of goods and a lot of services, but mostly goods throughout this country and world. And we're experiencing it. And it's definitely something that's going to be, it is a supply chain change. You know, this is the time where all of this stuff is changing. And we're realizing how vulnerable we are, Scott, to depending on the rest of the world for what we need in our own country.
Right, and that's the word we brought up. Maybe I think it was with you, autocracy, is when you're totally 100%
Yes.
self-sustainable. But you know what I'd like to do? I'd like you and I to get a glass of wine and sit down and watch one episode of Shark Tank where they don't tell those people to outsource to China, right? Because that's
right.
usually one of the biggest ways that they throw out there to drive those prices down. I think that, if they film any new one of those shows anymore, they're not going to be saying, let's be outsourcing everything to everywhere. Don't you think that's got to change their mind?
Well, I mean, I actually thought we had a really good chance when Trump was really into the trade tariff war with China. We had a great chance for businesses to, re-look at their supply chains and say, do we have too much dependence on China? Should we look at? And some of them did. Some of them moved to Vietnam. We saw some minor changes, but for the most part, most people stayed the course and didn't really diversify supply chains beyond what we want in China. And now when they have this just really, I think it's totally unreasonable. You can't have a virus that originates from your country that has affected the world and then say, oh, well, we're going to supply the world. China is the largest exporter and has been since they joined the WTO in 2001. You can't have the largest exporter of a lot of things globally decide that they're going to shut the ports down every single time there's an asymptomatic positive test result. This is lunacy, and it almost feels intentional. Like, are they trying to collapse the American economy? Are they trying to make Americans feel beholden to China? Are they trying to get us to get used to, empty shelves and 6 months waits? What is going on, Scott? Because a zero COVID policy is just illogical. It can't work anywhere. It wouldn't work here. It can't work there. It won't work anywhere.
I've asked it, I don't know how many times. And like I said, the best thing I can say, Rebecca, is I hope I live another 25 years so I find out what was really going on.
Exactly.
At the same time they're doing that, they're getting the American consumer hooked on the crack of really cheap goods, right? So I know people that have lost their job because it's been outsourced to China, that yet they'll still go to Walmart and buy everything from China. They don't get it, right? And so
they don't.
How much
they don't understand.
How much is the American consumer willing to take their part of this and go, look, I think that's an inflation level that Americans would pay, but maybe not on top of the 10% or whatever the real inflation number they're paying today is, because everybody would like to see those things come back, and I would pay a little bit more myself. But again, they have everybody addicted to this just in time, and it's so much cheaper that even people I know that have lost their jobs because they've outsourced to China will still go to Walmart and buy everything from China, which it doesn't make any sense.
You know, I saw a cartoon once, and it was exactly what you want. It was it was like a Kathy cartoon, and she was going to this daycare, and she was listening to all the perks, and they were saying, "Oh, we have a child psychologist on staff, and we personality test them, and we do all these things, and it's wonderful, and they know college, and they're ready to graduate by the time they're, you know, in preschool." And she's just like, "This is wonderful. Yes, it's $1 million a year." You know, that was the point. It was like, if you want something that everything is perfect, like, it does not exist. And so what we have to get is a great solution. And Scott, what I think is really going on here is, you know, this is some sort of reset. The U.S. dollar, we saw Israel last week replace dollars with Chinese yuan for the first time ever as one of their reserve currencies. This is the Russian incursion, the West's response with sanctions, getting Russia out of SWIFT, the supply chain crisis with China, the coming food crisis we have from H3N8 and killing 24 million chickens and turkeys. All of this stuff, Scott, is coming together in a perfect storm, and it's leading us to the fact that the United States dollar is on the precipice of losing some of its true value. For the first time in a long, long time, we are going to see this dollar come down, this market come down, and the Fed, you know, raising rates this week, another 50 basis points, 75 basis points potentially next month. This is a perfect storm of exactly everything we never wanted to happen ever, and certainly not all at the same time. And Americans need to wake up and understand what's happening and get prepared. Go to the store, stock your stuff up, make sure you're okay on your risk tolerances, because this market is teetering, and we know that. We can see it coming, Scott. And this is not going to be a surprise to anybody unless you just aren't paying attention. The signs are flashing everywhere. It's time to take action.
All right, well, we heard it from you, and you know what? A lot of those, that's probably one of the more important things that anybody's ever said on this show. I really appreciate you being on. Thank you very much. Rebecca Walser, coming to us from Tampa, Florida, where it's probably not nicer than it is here. Thank you.